The little boy disappeared in under 9 seconds. One moment, 5-year-old Kang Min-ho was laughing beside the fountain outside the luxury department store in Gangnam. The next gone. The nanny screamed first. Then the bodyguards moved. Black suits flooded the marble entrance like a swarm of shadows, shoving people aside, barking into earpieces, overturning tables. But the child was already inside the black van speeding into Seoul traffic. And somewhere across the city, a woman pushing a cleaning cart looked up slowly, because she had just seen the same van. And something felt wrong, very wrong. Rain hammered the streets of Seoul as Adiz tightened her grip on the cart handle. The neon lights reflected across wet pavement, glowing red and blue across her dark skin. Nobody looked at her twice. To the wealthy people entering the hotel, she was invisible, just another black immigrant cleaner working the night shift. But Adiz noticed things other people missed: fear, blood, desperation. And the tiny hand pressed briefly against the tinted van window before disappearing. Her footsteps slowed. The van had stopped near the alley behind the hotel. 2 men stepped out. One carried a gun. The other carried a crying child. Adiz froze. The boy's small face was streaked with tears. Appa, one of the men, slapped him hard. Shut up. Something inside Adiz snapped instantly. The men dragged the child toward the back entrance of an abandoned building beside the hotel. No cameras, no witnesses, professional. Adiz should have walked away. Every instinct screamed at her to stay out of it. But then the child looked directly at her and whispered, "Help me." Her heart stopped. The taller man noticed her first. His eyes narrowed. "You saw nothing." Adiz lowered her gaze immediately like a frightened worker. "Sorry," she said softly. The second man smirked. Foreigners should learn not to stare. They disappeared inside with the child. Adiz stood motionless. Rain dripped down her face. Then she slowly pulled out her old cracked phone. No battery, dead, of course. Her breathing became uneven. Think the hotel security office. She pushed the cart quickly toward the employee entrance, but halfway there, a black SUV screeched to a stop outside the alley. 5 armed men stepped out instantly, cold eyes, expensive suits, deadly silence. And then he emerged, tall, sharp, terrifying, Kang Jae-hoon, the man Seoul feared without speaking his name too loudly. Young billionaire, widowed mafia heir, owner of half the city's underground empire. His black coat moved violently in the rain as he stared toward the abandoned building, no panic on his face, which somehow made him even scarier. One bodyguard approached carefully. "We tracked the vehicle here, sir." Jae-hoon's voice came out low. "Alive? We don't know yet." Air changed instantly. Even the rain felt quieter. Adiz watched from behind her cart as the bodyguards stormed the building. Gunshots exploded seconds later. People screamed nearby. Cars crashed trying to escape the street. Adiz stumbled backward in shock. Then, a child's scream echoed from inside. Without thinking, she ran straight toward danger. One guard grabbed her arm immediately. "Get back." But Adiz heard the boy crying again. "Please." She yanked free before anyone could stop her. Jae-hoon turned sharply, eyes narrowing at the sight of her running into the building. Inside smelled like dust, blood, and gunpowder. The kidnappers were retreating upstairs. One had been shot already. Another dragged Min-ho violently toward a broken staircase. The child was sobbing uncontrollably. Adiz saw it instantly. The staircase railing was cracked, weak, dangerous. The kidnapper pulled harder. The railing snapped. Everything happened at once. The man lost balance. The child slipped from his grip. Min-ho fell backward toward open concrete below, and Adiz jumped. Her body slammed against the floor as she caught the child mid-fall. Pain exploded through her shoulder. The boy screamed into her chest. Above them, the kidnapper crashed violently onto metal pipes with a horrifying crack. Dead, silence filled the building. Then footsteps approached, heavy, controlled. Jae-hoon appeared through the smoke and darkness. His eyes landed first on the dead man, then on the terrified child shaking in Adiz's arms, and finally on her. For a moment, nobody spoke. The boy clung to her tightly. "Let go." Jae-hoon stared at the woman holding his son, a stranger, black cleaner uniform, bruised hands, trembling body. Yet somehow protecting the most important thing in his world. One bodyguard whispered carefully beside him, "Should we remove her?" But Jae-hoon kept staring, his expression unreadable. The child buried his face deeper into Adiz. "She saved me." That changed everything. Outside, flashing police lights painted the rain blue and red. News reporters gathered rapidly. The kidnapping of Kang Jae-hoon's son would dominate every headline in Korea by morning. But inside the building, Jae-hoon crouched slowly before Adiz. Up close he looked even more dangerous, sharp jaw, cold eyes, pain buried deep beneath silence. "Are you hurt?" Adiz blinked. She hadn't expected kindness, especially from a man whose presence made armed guards nervous. "Okay." Dripped down her arm, Jaihoon noticed immediately. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing." Little boy suddenly looked up at his father. "She smells like home." The room went silent. Even Jaihoon looked caught off guard, because Minho hadn't said something affectionate to anyone since his mother died. Not even to him. The child tightened his tiny fingers around Adiz's uniform. "Can she come with us?" One bodyguard looked horrified, another looked suspicious. Jaihoon remained expressionless, but his eyes stayed fixed on Adiz, like he was trying to understand why his emotionally closed-off son refused to let her go. Then his phone rang. He answered instantly. A voice spoke urgently from the other side. Jaihoon's face darkened. "Many?" A pause, then. "Find them before sunrise." He hung up slowly. Adiz felt the atmosphere shift again, dangerous, deadly. One of the kidnappers had escaped, and everyone knew what that meant. This wasn't over. Jaihoon stood fully. "We're leaving." The bodyguards surrounded them immediately, but Minho refused to release Adiz's hand. "No," Jaihoon looked down at his son calmly. "She has work." "I don't care." The child's lip trembled. "They'll come back." Adiz's heart tightened instantly. Jaihoon noticed too, fear, real fear, not tantrum, trauma. The boy looked toward Adiz again. "Please." And for the first time that night, Jaihoon looked uncertain. A bodyguard leaned close. "Sir, this could be dangerous. We know nothing about her." Jaihoon's gaze slowly returned to Adiz. "What's your name?" "Adiz." "Then you're coming with us." The drive to the penthouse felt unreal. Adiz sat stiffly beside Minho inside the armored SUV while bodyguards filled the vehicles around them. The city lights blurred outside. Luxury cars parted instantly when they saw the convoy. Power, pure power. Minho had fallen asleep against her arm halfway through the ride. He looked so small now, so vulnerable. Jaihoon sat across from them silently watching. Not once had he looked away for long. Adiz finally spoke carefully. "You don't trust me." No, the honesty shocked her. "But my son does." Rain streaked across the tinted windows. Jaihoon's voice softened slightly. "That matters more." The SUV entered a private underground garage guarded by armed security. Adiz's eyes widened slightly. This wasn't billionaire wealth. This was something darker. The elevator opened directly into a massive penthouse overlooking Seoul's glowing skyline. Marble floors, glass walls, silence everywhere. But despite the luxury, the home felt empty, cold, like grief still lived there. Minho stirred awake slowly, then immediately grabbed Adiz again. "You stayed." Something painful flashed briefly across Jaihoon's face. The child looked at his father sleepily. "She won't leave, right?" Jaihoon didn't answer immediately. Because suddenly, one of the security monitors downstairs exploded into static. Every bodyguard reached for weapons instantly. Alarm systems activated across the penthouse, and Jaihoon's expression turned lethal. A voice crackled through the security speaker, cold, distorted. "You got the boy back." A pause. "Now we take the woman." Adiz stopped breathing. Then the penthouse lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed the penthouse. Adiz heard Minho gasp beside her. Then glass shattered somewhere downstairs. A bodyguard shouted into his radio. "South entrance breached." The emergency red lights activated instantly, flooding the massive penthouse with dim crimson shadows. Jaihoon didn't panic. That was the terrifying part. While everyone else moved frantically, he simply stood there in the darkness like a man already prepared for war. "Adiz." His voice came low and controlled. "Take my son." Before she could respond, he pulled a handgun from inside his coat. Adiz froze. Minho clutched her arm tighter. The little boy was shaking now, not crying. Just used to fear in a way no child should ever be. Jaihoon crouched before his son. "Listen to me carefully." Minho nodded weakly. "You stay beside her no matter what happens." "About you?" A small silence followed. Then Jaihoon touched his son's head gently. "I'll come back." Softness in his voice hurt more than shouting ever could. Footsteps thundered below them. More glass shattered. Someone screamed. One bodyguard rushed into the living room. "Sir, they disabled the west cameras." Jaihoon stood slowly. "Many?" "At least 8. Pause then. "Alive or dead?" The guard hesitated. Jaihoon's face hardened instantly. "Dead." The bodyguard nodded immediately and disappeared. Adiz's stomach tight. This man gave death orders like breathing, and somehow that wasn't even the scariest thing about him. It was how calm he remained while doing it. Jaihoon turned toward Adiz again. "There's a panic room behind the library. I can help." "No." His eyes locked onto hers, sharp, protective, dangerous. You already saved my son once tonight. Before she could speak again, gunfire exploded downstairs. Min-ho flinched violently. Without thinking, Adiz wrapped her arms around him. The child buried his face into her chest immediately. Jae-hoon noticed, and something shifted behind his cold expression, something human. Then another voice crackled through the speakers. You really brought home a stray cleaner, Jae-hoon. Adiz felt the room tense instantly. The distorted voice laughed softly. Your wife dies and now you replace her with this. Jae-hoon's entire face changed. Not anger, something darker. One bodyguard whispered nervously. Sir, Jae-hoon raised one hand slowly. Silence. The voice continued. You should have stayed buried with her. Then the connection cut. The air became suffocating. Adiz looked at Jae-hoon carefully. For the first time tonight he looked emotionally wounded. Not physically dangerous, broken, but only for a second. Then the mafia boss disappeared back behind his eyes. Take him now. Adiz nodded quickly and grabbed Min-ho's hand. The child refused to release her fingers as she hurried toward the massive library. Behind them, Jae-hoon loaded his weapon calmly, then walked toward the sound of gunfire alone. The hidden panic room opened behind a moving bookshelf. Inside looked more luxurious than most apartments: monitors, food supplies, weapons, emergency beds. This was a man who expected betrayal daily. Adiz locked the door behind them as alarms echoed faintly outside. Min-ho sat silently on the couch, too silently. Adiz crouched before him gently. The little boy looked down. They always come back. Her chest tightened. Who? The bad people. His tiny fingers trembled. They killed Mommy too. Adiz stopped breathing. The room suddenly felt colder before she could answer. One of the monitors flickered alive. Security footage. Jae-hoon moving through the penthouse with terrifying precision. Gunshots echoed through the speakers. One attacker appeared from the hallway. Jae-hoon shot him instantly without hesitation. Min-ho didn't even react, like he'd seen violence before. Adiz's heart broke quietly. No child should live like this, she whispered. Min-ho looked at her softly. Appa says danger follows us. Boy hesitated. Will you leave too? Adiz opened her mouth, but no words came out immediately, because she didn't know. She had entered this nightmare by accident. These people weren't ordinary criminals. This was mafia war. And now strangers were trying to kill her too. Yet somehow, the thought of abandoning this little boy hurt more than the danger. Min-ho leaned closer quietly. You make the house feel warm. Adiz nearly cried before she could respond. One of the monitors showed movement. A shadow inside the penthouse, not security, someone else. Adiz's body stiffened. The intruder moved carefully through the dark hallway. Like he knew the layout. Then he stopped suddenly, directly outside the library. Min-ho saw him too. His tiny face went pale. The bookshelf handle moved slightly. Someone was trying to open the panic room. Adiz's breathing became shallow. She grabbed the nearest object she could find, a pistol. Her hands trembled instantly. She had never held a gun before. Outside, the hidden door creaked slowly. A male voice whispered, I know you're inside. Min-ho started shaking violently. Adiz pulled him behind her immediately. The man laughed quietly. Jae-hoon can't protect anyone. Handle moved again. Adiz aimed the weapon with trembling hands. Then a gunshot exploded outside. The man collapsed instantly. Blood spread across the floor. And Jae-hoon appeared from the darkness beyond him, his white shirt stained with blood, his expression unreadable. But the second he saw Adiz pointing the gun, his eyes softened slightly. You were going to shoot him. Adiz lowered the weapon slowly. I didn't know what else to do. Jae-hoon stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked toward his son. Min-ho ran into his father's arms immediately. And for the first time, Jae-hoon held someone like he was afraid to lose them. Not powerful, not feared, just a grieving father. His eyes closed briefly against Min-ho's hair. A quiet moment, painfully human. Then his gaze lifted toward Adiz again, and somehow the tension between them became heavier than before. One bodyguard approached from behind. It's done, sir. Jae-hoon nodded once. Many escaped. One. Silence. The bodyguard hesitated before continuing. He left a message. Jae-hoon's jaw tightened. What message? The guard glanced briefly toward Adiz, then lowered his voice. They specifically asked for the woman. Adiz felt cold instantly. Jae-hoon noticed her fear immediately. She whispered. Nobody answered because nobody knew, or maybe Jae-hoon already suspected something. Hours later, the penthouse finally became quiet. The bodies were gone. The broken glass cleaned. Security doubled. But tension still lived in every corner. Adiz stood alone near the giant window overlooking Seoul's sleeping skyline. Rain still fell softly outside. She should leave. Every logical thought told her to run far away from this dangerous family. Yet Min-ho was asleep upstairs holding her scarf in his tiny hands. And Jae-hoon, she didn't understand him. A monster to some people, a grieving husband to others, a father drowning silently in guilt. Footsteps approached behind her. Jae-hoon, now wearing a black sweater instead of blood-stained clothes. He stopped beside her quietly. For a while neither spoke. Then, "You're afraid of me," Adiz answered honestly. Jae-hoon nodded once, like he appreciated truth more than comfort. "You should be." The city lights reflected across his face, beautiful, cold, lonely. Adiz studied him carefully. "Did they really kill your wife?" A dangerous silence followed. She immediately regretted asking, but Jae-hoon surprised her. "Yes." No hesitation, no anger. "Just pain stripped bare. She died because of me." His voice almost sounded tired now, like carrying grief had become exhausting. Adiz looked at him softly. "That little boy blames himself too." Jae-hoon's eyes shifted instantly toward her. "He heard people say I should have died instead of her." Adiz continued quietly. "He's carrying guilt he doesn't understand." Jae-hoon looked away toward the rain. For the first time since meeting him, he looked emotionally exposed, like a man standing alone in the ruins of his own life. Then he spoke softly. "You see too much." Adiz gave a faint smile. Occupational hazard. That almost made him smile back, almost. Then suddenly the penthouse elevator opened again. Every guard reached for weapons immediately. A woman stepped out wearing an elegant white coat and heels, beautiful, cold, dangerous. And the moment she saw Adiz, her expression darkened. She turned toward Jae-hoon slowly. "The rumors are true." Atmosphere shifted instantly. Jae-hoon's face became unreadable again. The woman's eyes dragged across Adiz dismissively. "A cleaner." Adiz immediately understood. This woman knew him personally, very personally. The woman stepped closer to Jae-hoon. "You're replacing your dead wife already." Jae-hoon's voice came out dangerously calm. "Leave." The woman ignored him completely. Instead, she walked toward Adiz slowly, designer heels clicking across marble. "You should run while you still can." Adiz held her ground silently. The woman leaned closer. "Every woman close to him dies." Jae-hoon moved instantly then, fast enough to terrify everyone in the room. He grabbed the woman's wrist sharply. "Enough." The woman smiled bitterly despite the pain. "You're getting emotionally attached again." Her eyes shifted toward Adiz, and we both know what happens next. Then the elevator doors opened again. Another bodyguard rushed out breathlessly. "Sir," the guard looked shaken. "We found the escaped kidnapper." Jae-hoon released the woman immediately. "Alive?" The guard swallowed hard. "No, sir." A pause. "Someone cut out his tongue before killing him." Swallowed the penthouse whole. Then the guard added one final sentence. "And they carved a message into his chest." Jae-hoon's face darkened instantly. "What message?" The guard looked directly at Adiz, then spoke carefully. "The cleaner belongs to us." Nobody spoke after that. The penthouse felt colder somehow. Even the bodyguards looked unsettled now. "The cleaner belongs to us." "Kill her." "Find her." "Belongs." Adiz felt sick instantly. Jae-hoon's eyes shifted toward her slowly, sharp, calculating, protective, like he was trying to solve a puzzle, becoming more dangerous by the second. The elegant woman in white folded her arms quietly. "Well," she said softly, "this just became interesting." Jae-hoon ignored her completely. "To the security room," he ordered. The guards moved instantly. Adiz stood frozen near the window. "What does that mean?" Nobody answered immediately. That frightened her more. Jae-hoon approached slowly. "Did you recognize any of the kidnappers?" "No." "Have you seen those men before tonight?" "No." "Has anyone followed you recently?" "I don't know." Her voice cracked slightly. Fear was finally breaking through her composure. "I clean hotel rooms, Jae-hoon. I go home exhausted every night. I barely even know anyone in this city." His gaze stayed fixed on her face, searching, reading. Then the woman in white spoke again. "She's telling the truth." Adiz looked toward her sharply. The woman gave a faint smile. "I can usually tell when people lie." Jae-hoon's expression hardened slightly. "You should have left already, Seo-yeon." That was her name. Seo-yeon walked calmly toward the minibar. "Considering someone is targeting your house again, I think staying is smarter." She poured herself wine slowly before looking toward Adiz again. "You really don't know who he is, do you?" Adiz looked back at Jae-hoon. "I know enough." "No," Seo-yeon said quietly. "You really don't." The room became silent again. Then Jae-hoon spoke coldly. "Stop talking." Seo-yeon looked almost amused now. "She deserves honesty if men are trying to carve ownership messages into corpses over her." Adiz's stomach tightened. Jae-hoon stared at Seo-yeon for a long moment. Then, "Fine." looked back toward Adiz. Family controls the Bikdu organization. Name alone changed the atmosphere. Even the guards became more alert hearing it spoken aloud. Adiz frowned slightly. She didn't understand. Sioyon noticed immediately. Oh, she laughed softly. You actually don't know. Jaihoon's voice remained calm. The Bikdu organization controls private shipping routes, casinos, political investments, luxury real estate, Sioyon added quietly, and most of Seoul's criminal underworld. Adiz stopped breathing. The realization hit her all at once. Not businessman, not wealthy CEO, not rumored mafia, actual mafia. The dangerous silence around him suddenly made sense. The armored vehicles, the armed guards, the fear. Jae-hoon watched her reaction carefully. You should leave now. The words surprised her. What? You're already in danger because of me. His voice remained emotionally flat. But staying here will only get worse. Seo-yeon scoffed lightly. She can't leave now. Jae-hoon's eyes narrowed. Is already connected, Seo-yeon continued. Whoever took Min-ho clearly knows something. Adiz's heartbeat became uneven. What if they mistake me for someone else? Nobody answered, because that possibility terrified everyone. Then suddenly tiny footsteps approached upstairs. Min-ho, the little boy, appeared sleepily at the top of the staircase holding Adiz's scarf. The moment he saw unfamiliar tension downstairs, his expression changed. Fear again. Too much fear for a child that young. He hurried down immediately. Adiz, she knelt quickly before him. I'm here. Child relaxed instantly. Jae-hoon noticed that too. Min-ho looked around nervously. Are the bad men gone? Seo-yeon's expression softened slightly watching him, but Jae-hoon answered honestly. The child went quiet, then looked toward Adiz again. Leave tonight. The room fell silent again. Jae-hoon closed his eyes briefly, like hearing his son emotionally depend on someone else hurt him somehow. Adiz touched Min-ho's hair gently. Not leaving tonight. The child nodded once, satisfied, then leaned against her side naturally, like trust had already rooted deeply. Jae-hoon stared at them longer than necessary, and Seo-yeon noticed. Of course she noticed. Her eyes darkened slightly. Hours later, the penthouse had finally calmed. Most guards remained downstairs. Seo-yeon had disappeared into one of the guest rooms, and Seoul's skyline glittered silently beyond the giant windows. Adiz stood alone in the kitchen drinking water when Jae-hoon entered quietly. No bodyguards, no weapons visible, just him. Somehow that felt more dangerous. You should sleep. Adiz shook her head. I don't think I can. Jae-hoon leaned lightly against the counter across from her. For a moment neither spoke. Then Adiz looked at him carefully. Who is Seo-yeon to you? His expression remained unreadable. Late wife's sister. That surprised her instantly. She hates you. Yes. No denial, no defense, just acceptance. Adiz hesitated. Did your wife hate you too? That question landed heavily. Jae-hoon looked down briefly before answering. Something painful moved through his eyes again. She loved me too much. Silence afterward felt intimate somehow, dangerously intimate. Rain tapped softly against the windows while Seoul glowed beneath them. Adiz studied him quietly. You still wear your ring. Jae-hoon's fingers tightened slightly against the counter, like he forgot it was there. Wife used to say removing it would make the house colder. His voice almost sounded distant now, lost inside memory. Adiz noticed something then. A faint scar near his wrist, partially hidden beneath his sleeve, and below it a black tattoo, a serpent curled around a dagger, the same symbol she had briefly seen on one of the kidnappers before he died. Her body stiffened instantly. Jae-hoon noticed immediately. What? Adiz pointed slowly. That tattoo. His face changed dangerously fast. Where did you see it? One of the kidnappers had it. Exploded between them. Jae-hoon moved toward her instantly. Are you sure? Yes. His jaw tightened hard. For the first time since meeting him, he looked genuinely shaken. Then Seo-yeon's voice appeared behind them. That's impossible. They both turned sharply. She stood near the hallway now, arms folded. The black vipers disappeared years ago. Jae-hoon's eyes stayed locked on Adiz. You saw the tattoo clearly? Yes. Seo-yeon stepped closer slowly. If the black vipers are involved, she didn't finish. She didn't need to. Even Adiz could feel the fear in the room now. Jae-hoon suddenly grabbed his phone. Call Han. One bodyguard answered instantly through the speaker. Yes, sir. Now, the line disconnected immediately. Adiz frowned. Who are the black vipers? Seo-yeon answered this time. Not normal criminals. Her voice lowered. They're executioners. The air felt colder again. They used to work directly under Jae-hoon's father before disappearing after a massacre 8 years ago. Jae-hoon's expression darkened. They were supposed to be dead. Seo-yeon looked toward Adiz carefully. If they're hunting you, a pause. Then someone powerful wants you alive. Adi's stomach twisted painfully. Why, nobody knew, or worse, somebody did. Then Minho's tiny voice echoed softly from the staircase. Because of her necklace. Everyone turned instantly. The little boy stood there half awake again, holding his stuffed tiger. Jae-hoon frowned slightly. What necklace? Minho pointed toward Adi's. The silver one she always wears. Adi's touched her neck instinctively. A small silver pendant rested against her skin. Old worn cheap, she blinked in confusion. This, Minho nodded. One of the bad men looked at it. The room went completely silent. Jae-hoon stepped closer slowly. Where did you get that necklace? Adi's swallowed. Mother gave it to me before she died. Seo-yeon's face changed instantly. Show me. Adi's hesitated, then removed it carefully. Seo-yeon examined the pendant. Her expression slowly lost color. Jae-hoon noticed immediately. What? Seo-yeon looked up slowly. This symbol, her voice became quieter, belongs to the Black Vipers. Adi's entire body went cold. What? Jae-hoon took the pendant himself. His face hardened instantly, because engraved faintly into the silver was the same serpent wrapped around a dagger, the same tattoo, the same symbol. Adi stepped backward. No, that's impossible. Jae-hoon's eyes lifted toward her slowly. How long have you had this? Since childhood. Is your family from exactly Nigeria? No, he said quietly. Before Nigeria. Adi's froze. Because suddenly she remembered something. A voice, her mother's voice years ago. You must never let anyone see that necklace. Breathing became uneven. Jae-hoon noticed instantly. What did your mother tell you? Adi shook her head slowly. She used to say my father made dangerous enemies. Seo-yeon looked horrified now. Jae-hoon remained terrifyingly calm. What was your father's name? Adi swallowed hard. I don't know. Silence. Then, the penthouse lights flickered again. Every guard reached for weapons instantly. A massive explosion suddenly rocked the entire building. Glass shattered across the upper floor. Minho screamed. Adi stumbled backward, and downstairs gunfire erupted again. But this time the attackers weren't trying to enter quietly. They came like an army. One bodyguard's voice screamed through the comms, "Sir." Heavy gunfire exploded behind him. They brought Viper assassins. Then the line went dead. Jae-hoon grabbed Adi's wrist instantly, his eyes colder than death itself. They're here for you. Somewhere below the penthouse, a man covered in serpent tattoos smiled while blood dripped from his knife. She finally came home. The penthouse became a war zone in seconds. Gunfire thundered through the lower floors. Glass exploded. Security alarms screamed endlessly into the night. And somewhere beneath all the chaos, Minho was crying. Jae-hoon pulled Adi's behind him as bodyguards rushed across the hallway with rifles raised. Move. Another explosion shook the building violently. The lights flickered again. Smoke drifted upward through the stairwell. Seo-yeon grabbed Minho immediately. We need to go underground. But Minho reached toward Adi's desperately. No, the child's voice cracked with panic. Adi's too. Jae-hoon looked toward his son, then toward Adi's, his jaw tightened. You stay beside him. Adi's nodded quickly despite her shaking hands. Jae-hoon turned toward his guards. Seal the private elevators. Yes, sir. Kill every Viper inside this building. The men moved instantly, no hesitation, no fear, because this wasn't just another attack anymore. This had become personal, very personal. The hidden underground bunker beneath the penthouse was colder than the panic room. Steel walls, private tunnels, weapon storage, emergency escape routes. A kingdom built for surviving betrayal. Adi sat beside Minho on a leather couch while Seo-yeon monitored security footage from multiple screens. Above them, muffled gunfire continued. The little boy clung tightly to Adi's arm, too tightly, like letting go meant dying. You're shaking, he whispered softly. Adi's forced a smile. Are you? Ho leaned against her quietly. You make me less scared. Her chest ached instantly. Nobody had needed her like this in a very long time, not since losing her own mother. Across the room, Seo-yeon watched them silently, then finally spoke. He's attached already. Adi's looked up carefully. He's lonely, Seo-yeon continued. Is his father? Explosion echoed faintly overhead. Seo-yeon's eyes shifted toward the monitor showing Jae-hoon moving through smoke-filled hallways with terrifying calm. 3 armed men rushed him. He shot one instantly, disarmed another, snapped the third man's neck with brutal precision. Adi stared in shock. That wasn't self-defense, that was experience, years of violence carved into muscle memory. Yet somehow she still remembered the softness in his voice when speaking to Minho. That contradiction unsettled her deeply. Seo-yeon noticed her expression. You're trying to decide whether he's a monster. Adi stayed quiet. Most people never understand Jae-hoon, Seo-yeon said softly. Then help me understand. Seo-yeon looked back toward the monitors. He wasn't born cruel. A pause. He became cruel after watching kindness destroy everyone he loved. The room fell silent, then Seo-yeon added quietly. His wife was the last soft thing left in him. Adi's eyes shifted toward Jae-hoon on the screen again, blood on his hands, pain in his eyes, loneliness everywhere around him. Then suddenly, the monitor glitched violently. Static filled the screens. Seo-yeon cursed under her breath. They hacked the internal system. A distorted voice suddenly echoed through the bunker speakers, deep, cold, amused. Jae-hoon still hides underground like a frightened prince. Min-ho stiffened instantly. Adiz wrapped an arm around him protectively. The voice laughed softly. Bring us the girl and the child lives. Seo-yeon grabbed a weapon immediately. Cowards. The voice ignored her. Adiz. Her blood ran cold hearing her name spoken so casually. You've been searching for your father your whole life without knowing it. Adi stood slowly. What? Static crackled again, then he belonged to us. Connection cut instantly, silence crashed into the bunker. Adi's heartbeat pounded violently now. Father, Seo-yeon looked genuinely disturbed for the first time. This is bad. Does that mean? Before Seo-yeon could answer, the bunker door suddenly beeped, unlocked, everyone froze. That's impossible, Seo-yeon whispered. The heavy steel door slowly creaked open, and Jae-hoon stepped inside. Blood covered one side of his face. His breathing heavy, his eyes lethal. But the second Min-ho ran toward him, something inside him softened immediately. Jae-hoon caught his son tightly against his chest. You okay? Min-ho nodded quickly, then pointed toward Adiz. They talked about her father. Jae-hoon's gaze shifted instantly toward her, dark, focused, dangerously protective. What exactly did they say? Before Adiz could answer, one of the screens flickered back on. A live video feed appeared suddenly, and everyone in the room stopped breathing. An older man sat tied to a chair somewhere dark, bruised, bleeding, terrified. Adiz stared at the screen in confusion. Then the man lifted his head slowly, and her entire world shattered because she recognized him. The old photograph her mother kept hidden for years, the same eyes, the same face, her father, alive. The man on screen looked directly into the camera desperately. Adiz, her knees nearly gave out. Jae-hoon grabbed her arm instantly before she collapsed. The older man's voice trembled. If you're seeing this. They found you. The video glitched briefly, then continued. You were never supposed to return to Korea. Seo-yeon looked horrified now. Korea. Adiz couldn't breathe properly anymore. The man continued weakly. The Black Vipers betrayed us years ago. A cough interrupted him violently. Blood stained his lips. They murdered your mother because she tried to protect you. Adiz's eyes filled instantly. No, 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 no. The man looked directly into the camera again. You carry something they want. Jae-hoon's grip tightened slightly on Adiz's arm. What thing? He muttered quietly. The older man whispered one final sentence. Kang Jae-hoon. Then the video feed cut abruptly to black. The bunker went silent, completely silent. Adiz stood frozen, tears rolling soundlessly down her face. Jae-hoon watched her carefully, not cold now, concerned, which somehow affected her more. Father's alive, her voice barely existed. Seo-yeon looked toward Jae-hoon slowly. This changes everything. Jae-hoon nodded once. Yes. Adiz looked at him shakily. You knew something. Little flashed through her grief instantly. You knew. Jae-hoon stayed calm. Father once mentioned a foreign operative connected to the Vipers. And you didn't tell me. I wasn't certain it was connected to you. Adiz stepped back emotionally. You brought me into this house while hiding things from me. Jae-hoon's face tightened slightly. I was trying to protect you. Lying. Before he could answer, Min-ho suddenly grabbed Adiz's hand. Please don't fight. Little boy looked terrified again. Like conflict itself hurt him. Adiz immediately softened. Jae-hoon noticed, of course he noticed. The child looked between them nervously. Everybody leaves after fighting. That sentence hit harder than gunfire. Jae-hoon looked away briefly. Guilt moved visibly across his face. Then suddenly the bunker lights shut off again. Emergency red lighting activated instantly. Seo-yeon cursed. They're inside the lower tunnels. Jae-hoon pulled out his handgun immediately. Adiz. His voice came low and deadly serious. Stay behind me no matter what happens. Heavy footsteps echoed beyond the bunker walls, slow, deliberate. A man's voice drifted through the darkness. Brother. Jae-hoon's entire body went still, not fear, recognition. Then the voice laughed softly. You really forgot me? Seo-yeon's face lost color. The bunker doors burst open violently, smoke flooded inside. and through the haze stepped a tall man covered in serpent tattoos, elegant black suit, knife in hand, smiling. But the moment Adiz saw his face, her heart nearly stopped because he looked exactly like her. The man's eyes locked onto hers immediately, then he smiled slowly. "There you are, little sister." Min Ho gasped. Seoyeon reached for her weapon. Jaehoon's face became pure murder, and the tattooed man tilted his head slightly before speaking again. "Father's been waiting for both of us." Nobody moved. The bunker drowned in red emergency light while the tattooed man smiled at Adiz like they were meeting at a family dinner instead of inside a battlefield. "Little sister." The words kept echoing inside her head. Impossible. Her breathing became uneven. Jaehoon stepped slightly in front of her, instantly protective. "Lethal." The tattooed man laughed softly. "You really think I came to hurt her?" His eyes shifted toward Adiz again. "You don't even know your real name, do you?" "Adiz," she whispered shakily. The smile faded slowly from his face. "That's the name your mother gave you after she stole you from us." Jaehoon's voice came low and dangerous. "One more word and I kill you." Man smirked. "You always threaten violence when emotions get involved." Seoyeon moved beside Min-ho protectively. "Jaehoon, don't listen to him." Jaehoon never took his eyes off the tattooed man. "Why are the vipers hunting her?" The man tilted his head slightly. "Hunting?" A faint laugh escaped him. "We've been protecting her for years." Dee shook her head immediately. "You murdered my mother." Pain flickered briefly across the man's face, unexpectedly real. He said quietly, "We tried to save her." Jaehoon's jaw tightened. "You expect us to believe that?" The man looked directly at Adiz again. "Your mother ran because she discovered what our father was planning." That word again. Adiz's stomach twisted painfully. The tattooed man took one slow step forward. "Do you know why Jaehoon's wife died?" The bunker froze. Jaehoon's eyes darkened instantly. "Stop talking." The man ignored him. "She discovered the same truth your mother did." Seoyeon looked horrified. Jaehoon raised his gun immediately. "Enough." The tattooed man finally stopped smiling. "You still blame yourself for her death." The room became suffocating because suddenly Jaehoon looked emotionally exposed again. Not mafia boss, not feared kingpin, just a broken widower carrying unbearable guilt. Adiz stared at him quietly. The man continued softly. "She died trying to protect Min-ho from your father." Min-ho tightened his grip around Seoyeon instantly. Confused, scared, Jaehoon's voice dropped dangerously low. "Father is dead." "No." The tattooed man smiled faintly. "He disappeared." Seoyeon whispered under her breath, "Oh my God." Adiz's heart pounded violently now. Nothing made sense anymore. The tattooed man looked toward her again. "Father built the Black Vipers to control powerful families from the shadows." He pointed slowly toward Jaehoon. "Kang Jaehoon was supposed to inherit that empire beside us." Jaehoon's face hardened instantly. "I walked away." "Yes." Man's smile faded completely. "And your wife died because of it." That sentence shattered something inside the room. Jaehoon moved so fast nobody reacted in time. He slammed the tattooed man against the wall violently, gun pressed against his throat. "Say her name again." Bunker trembled with murderous tension. But the tattooed man only looked at Adiz. He loved her too late. Jaehoon's finger tightened on the trigger. Then Min-ho's voice broke the moment apart. "Appa." Small, terrified, Jaehoon froze instantly. The little boy's eyes were full of tears now. Become scary again. Silence, heavy silence. Jaehoon slowly released the man, and somehow that tiny moment hurt Adiz more than all the violence, because she realized something terrifying. Min-ho wasn't afraid strangers would kill his father. He was afraid his father would lose himself again. The tattooed man adjusted his suit calmly, then looked toward Adiz one last time. "Father wants to meet you." "No," Jaehoon said instantly. The man ignored him, dying. That changed everything. Even Seoyeon looked shocked. The man reached slowly into his pocket, every weapon in the room raised instantly. But he only pulled out a small photograph, then tossed it toward Adiz. She caught it shakily, and her heart broke again. The picture showed her mother, young, smiling, standing beside a Korean man with gentle eyes, and between them two children, a little boy, and a baby girl wrapped in blankets. Her tears blurred Adiz's vision instantly. The tattooed man spoke softly now. "You were loved before all this violence." The bunker fell silent again. Then suddenly gunfire exploded somewhere above them. One bodyguard screamed through the comms, "Sir, more attackers incoming." The tattooed man cursed quietly. "They found this tunnel." Jaehoon grabbed Adiz immediately. "We're leaving." The tattooed man blocked the path. "If she goes with you, she dies." Jaehoon's expression became ice. If she goes with you, I kill everyone you know." The tension between them felt deadly. Then Adiz spoke quietly. "Stop." Both men looked at her instantly. Tears still filled her eyes. "I'm tired." Her voice cracked painfully. "Tired of secrets, tired of violence, tired of everybody deciding my life for me." The bunker became silent again. Adiz looked toward the tattooed man. "What's your name?" For the first time, he looked emotional too. Hyun, her brother. The realization felt unreal. Then she looked toward Jaehoon, and her chest hurt again seeing him. Because beneath all the danger, he looked afraid, not for himself, for her. Adiz noticed it instantly. So did Seo-yeon. Even Min-ho noticed. The little boy slowly walked toward Adiz, then wrapped his tiny arms around her waist. "Leave." Her eyes closed briefly. Jaehoon watched silently. The child looked up at her desperately. "You promised." Something inside Adiz shattered completely then, because nobody had ever looked at her like staying mattered that much, not since her mother died. Jaehoon stepped closer slowly. "Adiz." His voice had changed. No coldness, no walls, just raw emotion finally escaping. "If you walk into that world alone," a pause, "I may never get you back." Their eyes locked. And suddenly the bunker disappeared, the gunfire, the blood, the danger, none of it mattered for one terrifying second. Because the way he looked at her now said everything he couldn't speak aloud. Seo-yeon quietly looked away. Like she suddenly understood something heartbreaking. Jaehoon had fallen in love, and it terrified him. Adiz whispered softly, "You barely know me." Jaehoon gave the faintest, saddest smile. "You looked at my son like he mattered." His voice lowered. "That was enough." Swallowed the room. Then Min-ho tugged Adiz's hand gently. "You make Appa smile differently." Jaehoon actually looked embarrassed for the first time. It lasted barely a second, but Adiz saw it, and somehow in the middle of violence and chaos, she almost smiled too. Then the bunker shook violently again. The attackers were getting closer. Lee Hyun cursed under his breath. "We have minutes." Jaehoon's face hardened once more. Decision made, he looked toward Seo-yeon. "Take Min-ho through the eastern tunnel." Seo-yeon nodded immediately. "What about you?" Jaehoon's eyes shifted toward Adiz. "I'm ending this tonight." Air changed instantly, because everyone understood what that meant: war. Lee Hyun stepped beside Adiz quietly. "You can still come with me." Jaehoon's expression darkened instantly. Adiz looked between them both, her brother by blood, and the dangerous widowed mafia boss whose lonely child had somehow reached her heart. Then she made her choice. Adiz slowly walked toward Jaehoon. The room went silent. Lee Hyun closed his eyes briefly, like he already expected it. Jaehoon stared at her in shock. "Adiz," she looked directly into his eyes. "I'm tired of running." Something emotional cracked visibly across Jaehoon's face. Then suddenly, Min-ho smiled. A real smile. The first truly happy smile anyone had seen from him in years. And Jaehoon nearly broke watching it, because somehow, this woman had brought warmth back into a dead house. But before anyone could speak again, a deafening explosion ripped through the tunnel entrance. Concrete collapsed everywhere. Attackers flooded inside instantly. Gunfire erupted. Jaehoon shoved Adiz behind him immediately while shooting with terrifying precision. Lee Hyun fought beside him. Brothers by blood, enemies by history, united by her. Smoke swallowed the bunker, bodies fell. Chaos exploded everywhere then. A single gunshot echoed differently from the rest. Jaehoon froze, Adiz's heart stopped. Because blood suddenly spread across his white shirt, Min-ho screamed. "Appa!" Time shattered. Jaehoon stumbled backward slightly, his gun falling from his hand. Adiz caught him before he hit the ground. The mafia boss looked down at the blood spreading through his chest, then slowly back up at her, and despite everything, he smiled weakly. "You stayed," spilled down Adiz's face instantly. "You dare die." Jaehoon lifted one trembling hand slowly to her cheek, soft, gentle, like he wanted to memorize her face. Then his eyes shifted toward his son. Min-ho was sobbing uncontrollably now. The little boy tried running toward them. But Seo-yeon held him back desperately as more gunfire exploded around the bunker. Jaehoon looked back toward Adiz again, and finally whispered the truth he had been fighting since the moment she caught his son in her arms. "I love you." Her breath broke instantly then. The bunker lights died completely. Darkness swallowed everything. More gunshots echoed. People screamed. And somewhere inside the chaos, Adiz felt Jaehoon's body suddenly go still in her arms. The last thing she heard before everything faded into darkness was Min-ho screaming for his father.